Bloomberg Audio Studios. Podcasts, radio, news.
This is the Bloomberg Daybreak Europe podcast. Good morning. It's Friday, the 2nd of January. I'm Stephen Carroll in London. Coming up today, Swiss authorities continue the search for victims after dozens are killed in a tragic New Year fire at a ski resort bar. Christine Lagarde says Bulgaria joining the euro is a powerful symbol of what the EU can achieve. Plus, an upbeat start. Stocks begin 2026 on the up as last year's big bets on AI and chips continue to power gains. Let's start with a roundup of our top stories. Officials in Switzerland say around 40 people have died in a fire at a ski resort bar where partygoers were celebrating the new year. They estimate that more than 100 others have been injured after flames ripped through the bar at the popular alpine resort Crans-Montana. Eyewitnesses told French broadcaster BFM TV that a candle on a bottle ignited the ceiling. Swiss President Guy Parmelin says it's one of the worst tragedies his country has ever experienced.
Their lives should be honoured for what they were. Promise, energy, a part of our shared future. We owe it to them to respect them. We owe it to their memory to make sure that such a tragedy never happens again.
Swiss President Guy Parmelin speaking through a translator. Investigators are retrieving some phones and conducting interviews with witnesses to see if the venue had the correct safety procedures and emergency exits. The European Central Bank President Christine Lagarde says Bulgaria adopting the euro is a testament to the continent's ability to cooperate and withstand international headwinds. In a statement, the ECB chief said the euro is a powerful symbol of what Europe can achieve when we work together. She offered these words in a video message posted on social media.
We are delighted to welcome all the Bulgarians into the euro area using the euro. I promised that I would toast that moment. And of course, I will raise a glass with some good Bulgarian wine to celebrate the occasion.
Well, despite Lagarde's warm words, Bulgaria's entry into the euro area comes amid ongoing criticism of the country from the European Union over its failure to make sufficient progress on improving the rule of law. Domestically, the timing is also sensitive. The Bulgarian government has recently been forced to resign following anti-corruption demonstrations, and public opinion remains divided, with almost half of the population said to oppose adopting the single currency. Stocks have opened the new year with gains, once again being dominated by AI and chip makers. Asian shares climbed as Samsung touched an all-time high and Baidu jumped on the news that its chip unit has filed for an IPO. Despite a recent pullback, global stocks posted their strongest year since 2019 last year. Margie Patel is head of the capital allocation team at Allspring Global Investments.
I think the same sectors that have been strong for this year and a couple of years before are going to continue to be strong. The other sectors that I think particularly for consumers may be rather disappointing. So we still think it'll be technology, industrials, relating to the electrical grid. And those will be the sectors. And aerospace defense will continue to be the strong sectors and really outperform those other sectors.
Margie Patel speaking there after the Nasdaq 100 index gained 20% last year in a third consecutive year of gains. In other corners of the market, gold and silver have also advanced as trading in 2026 kicked off, building on their best annual performances since 1979. China's BYD looks on track to surpass Tesla to become the world's biggest selling electric vehicle maker from 2025. The EV giant met its full-year sales target, delivering 4.6 million vehicles. That's up almost 8% from 2024. Around half of those were fully electric vehicles. Meanwhile, Tesla is expected to report later today that it delivered just over 440,000 vehicles in the fourth quarter, down 11% from a year earlier. That would see annual sales come in at around 1.6 million, marking the second consecutive year of declining sales for Elon Musk's company. The UK's Chancellor Rachel Reeves is quietly hammering workers with taxes, according to new analysis from the Centre for Policy Studies. The report by the right of centre think tank, titled Who Wins Under Labour, says that under OBR forecasts, workers earning around £50,000 today will be worse off by just over £500 in 2030, even as pensioners and benefit recipients enjoy real terms gains. The news comes after the Chancellor extended a freeze on income tax and national insurance contributions for employees until 2031 in her November budget, a policy which the Treasury has defended as fair and necessary. And Zoran Mamdani has been inaugurated as Mayor of New York City, promising to lead as a democratic socialist. The nearly 2-hour swearing-in ceremony featured speeches from two of the US's most liberal members of Congress, Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez and Senator Bernie Sanders. Mamdani promised the large crowd at City Hall to represent all of those living in the city.
I stand alongside over 1 million New Yorkers who voted for this day nearly 2 months ago. And I stand just as resolutely alongside those who did not. I know there are some who view this administration with distrust or disdain, or who see politics as permanently broken. And while only action can change minds, I promise you this: if you are a New Yorker, I am your mayor.
Zoran Mamdani is New York City's first Muslim and South Asian mayor, as well as the youngest in more than a century. After the ceremony, Mamdani announced 3 executive orders focused on making housing more affordable. And those are your top stories on the markets. The MSCI Asia Pacific Index outside of Japan is up 1.6%. Japanese markets are still closed today. The Hang Seng 2.6% higher. Eurostoxx 50 futures 0.4 lower at the moment, but we're looking at futures positive on Wall Street. Nasdaq futures up by 0.7%. The Bloomberg Dollar Spot Index is flat. So we've got the euro at 117.48 this morning. In a moment, we'll look ahead to some of the big themes dominating markets in the year ahead, plus why today, January 2nd, should be your defaults day. But first, let's bring you more on our top story in the devastating fire at that ski resort in Switzerland during New Year celebrations. Our reporter Tiwa Adebayo is here with the latest. Tiwa, what is the latest that we know then about what happened?
Well, we know that this fire broke out in the early hours of yesterday morning. It was at Le Constellation Bar in the ski resort of Crans-Montana during those New Year celebrations. Police and emergency services were alerted around 1:30 a.m. and rushed to the scene to help. At the moment, Swiss police are saying about 40 people were killed and 115 injured. There are a number of others missing as well. The injured were taken to local hospitals after the event, as well as some facilities in Lausanne, Geneva and Zurich, so across Switzerland. And local officials are saying the blaze was the result of an accident. Some eyewitnesses have told French broadcasters that it was a candle on top of a bottle which ignited the ceiling, resulting in the fierce blaze. At the moment, police have cordoned off the area and they are continuing to investigate the cause of the fire.
Where do we expect those investigations to be focusing on from here?
Well, we've heard from the Swiss president that he's confident that the investigation will be carried out in a professional manner. At the moment, investigators are trying to deduce a cause of the blaze. They've retrieved some phones from the scenes and they are conducting interviews with witnesses. One part of their work will be to see if the venue had the correct safety procedures and emergency exits in place, if anything could have been prevented. But also, there are still a number of people missing, as I mentioned, and police are trying to identify bodies and are trying to get in touch with the relatives of the deceased. Police have now set up a helpline for families seeking information. Officials are warning, though, that it could take days or even weeks to identify everyone that died.
This is, too, obviously a major tragedy in the ski resort for Switzerland as a country as well. And how are authorities there reacting?
Yeah, so for Switzerland, this is a major incident and one that they are perhaps not used to. Although it's a very popular tourist destination, Crans-Montana, it's also quite a small town, and we've seen that in some of the reaction. Some of the injured have had to be transferred to neighbouring countries, just given the strain on the health services in Switzerland because of the scale of the tragedy. But the Swiss president as well saying that it's one of the worst tragedies their country has ever known. They're still coming to terms with the scale of the incident, but there was a significant immediate reaction from emergency services. There were 13 helicopters, 42 ambulances and 150 emergency responders sent to the scene of the fire shortly after that fire broke out. So at the moment, Switzerland is still coming to terms with the scale and the tragedy of this event.
Okay, Tiwa Adebayo, thank you very much. Stay with us. More from Bloomberg Daybreak Europe coming up after this. To the markets now, and we're seeing stock markets in Asia gaining in their first trading sessions of the year. The prices of gold and silver also rising after volatility that we've had over recent days. Let's bring in our markets reporter Valerie Teitel for more. Valerie, good morning. A positive start to the year. What's driving the gains in Asia?
Look, it's a positive start to the year, and it's all down to, again, the theme of chips and AI leading Asia stocks higher. We have the Hang Seng higher by 2.7%. The Kospi index in South Korea higher by 2.3%. And that's already after the Kospi in South Korea was one of the best performing stock markets of 2025. What's really leading it is a few interesting things about chip IPOs. Baidu announcing its AI chip unit has filed for an IPO. That was one of the best performing stocks in the Hang Seng this morning. And it's kicking off what is expected to be a busy year for listings backing China's tech ambitions. We actually had an IPO this morning from Byron. This is another Chinese chip maker. It surged as much as 119% in the first day of trading in Hong Kong. Pretty impressive first session trading debuts, and follows a string of some Chinese chip makers coming to the market. In December, we had the likes of More Threads and Meta X, some of those surging triple digits on their first day of trading. The market is starting to coin these companies grouped together the four little dragons. It's all about China's ambitions in the chip space as NVIDIA retreats from the China market. So a good positive session for Asia. Again, as you mentioned, we are seeing precious metals rebound after a volatile December. We're seeing gold up 1.3% and silver up 3%. And it comes after a pretty rough trading session for the last trading session of the year after the CME hiked margin requirements for precious metals, but they're starting off the year on a positive footing.
Well, let's think then, Valerie, I suppose, about how this fits into some of the bigger themes we're expecting on markets in 2026. Of course, as you mentioned, AI, absolutely huge and driving gains in last year. Are there going to be continuing questions about a bubble in AI? Is there a continuing source of bullishness from this area as we look into the year ahead?
Look, no doubt. The source of excitement about 2026 does come a lot down to AI and this technology. Fidelity International calling it the defining theme for equity markets in 2026. BlackRock thinking that it could keep worries about tariffs and traditional macro drivers in the rearview mirror if we continue to see this positivity about AI. NatWest calling it the powerful engine of economic expansion. But you did mention bubble concerns, and I do think there is still going to be a narrative of how does this infrastructure build out? How do we build out these data centers if we're still tight on funding? Private credit has been playing a big part in funding some of these data centers. We know that private credit has had some issues before with the lack of transparency in some of their deals. But also you have to bring into the fact how growth and inflation is going to help or perhaps hinder funding for AI. If we do have supportive fiscal policies around the world continuing, which we're expecting to, either from Germany, Japan, or the US, probably would need to be matched by lower interest rates in order to help fund this tech build out. And for that to happen, we need to continue to see the U.S. labor market weaken slightly, inflation return back to track, and that would open up the door for potential Fed easing for 2026. And off the back of that, lower interest rates, meaning that funding this debt surge to help this AI build out could be a bit easier than the market expects.
Valerie, tariffs and geopolitics were also big players for investors in the past year. Do things look a little calmer from an investor point of view going into 2026?
Well, given how big this technology AI driver is, I think the main worry, at least in the geopolitical space, is continued tensions between the U.S. and China over the tech race. I mentioned it just at the beginning of this discussion about how Chinese tech companies are starting to pose some competition to the likes of NVIDIA, to the likes of U.S. big tech and their dominance around the world. So how the U.S. and China continue to have a strong or maybe fractured relationship about AI and the tech ambitions behind it could be something that's quite key for the equity market next year.
And briefly, Valerie, on the question of private credit, you mentioned its importance there in the tech space. Is there any sign of the appetite for private credit abating?
Well, look, if we continue to have supportive Fed policies and lower interest rates, it's hard to see credit having an issue next year. But yes, it is going to be such a key role in the AI build out that, of course, people are going to be concerned when they start to see some of these numbers that the likes of some of these data centers, infrastructure build outs are going to be posing to how much debt is already out there, Stephen. I know we talk so much about the debt already out there, at least on the government balance sheet. Next year could really be about a debt surge, at least in the private sphere around this AI build out.
Okay, Valerie Tartell, our market supporter. Thank you very much. Just wanted to mention one other story that we've been reading this morning, an idea perhaps if you're bored or simply disillusioned with New Year's resolutions. The behavioural economists Ray Fisman and Michael Luca have a great piece on Bloomberg about how today, the 2nd of January, should be your defaults day. That means that you should find some time today to examine all of the decisions that are made by default in your life, whether it's how much you put into your pension or checking those subscriptions to see if there are any that you're not using. They delve into the science of this and why defaults aren't all bad, but they can leave some room for manipulation, perhaps, those continuing subscriptions that you don't check and allow, I suppose, money going out of your bank account for no reason. Another suggestion from them, look at the apps on your home screen on your phone. Are they the ones you use the most? You could be saving yourself time over the years too. They have some helpful suggestions as well. Things like perhaps not just joining the gym, but allocating appointments in your calendar to make sure that you actually go. Carving out a time might actually help you to do it. Perhaps some good ideas, some inspiration to start the year. We'll put a link to that piece on Bloomberg.com in our show notes. This is Bloomberg Daybreak Europe, your morning brief on the stories making news from London to Wall Street and beyond.
Look for us on your podcast feed every morning on Apple, Spotify and anywhere else you get your podcasts.
You can also listen live each morning on London DAB Radio, the Bloomberg Business app and Bloomberg.com.
Our flagship New York station is also available on your Amazon Alexa devices. Just say, Alexa, play Bloomberg 1130. I'm Caroline Hepker.
And I'm Stephen Carroll. Join us again tomorrow morning for all the news you need to start your day, right here on Bloomberg Daybreak Europe.